Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship had been traveling through space for 3 months now, looking for signs of alien life. Earth scientists had built the Defender to be humanity's first real exploration vessel. It looked simple from the outside, just a long metal tube with engines at the back and a command section at the front. Amy Patterson sat at the communications station, monitoring radio signals from nearby space. She had been quiet for most of the day, but now she turned around with wide eyes. "Captain, I'm picking up something big," she said. "Really big?" Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of big?" "Multiple ships, sir. At least 12 of them. They're massive compared to us." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "They're coming this way fast." The main screen changed to show long-range sensors. Jake could see the approaching fleet. Each ship was at least 5 times larger than the Defender. They moved in perfect formation like a pack of wolves surrounding prey. The lead ship was enormous, probably big enough to hold a small city. Lisa Carter looked up from her tactical station. "Captain, those ships are armed. I'm reading energy signatures that could level a planet." She was the ship's weapons officer, and she knew dangerous when she saw it. "Are they trying to talk to us?" Jake asked. Amy shook her head. "Not yet, but they're scanning us with everything they have. I think they're trying to figure out what we are." The alien fleet slowed down as it got closer. The ships arranged themselves in a circle around the Defender, like they were studying a bug under a glass. Each alien vessel was dark gray with sharp edges and glowing red lights. They looked built for war. Nathan Brooks ran onto the bridge from the science section. "Captain, I've never seen ships like these. The metal they're made from doesn't match anything in our databases. And the energy readings..." He stopped and stared at the screen. "How are they so big?" "I don't know," Jake said. "But we're about to find out." A new voice filled the bridge, deep, harsh, and speaking in a language none of them recognized. Amy worked quickly at her station, running the words through the ship's translation computer. After a few seconds, the alien voice became clear English words. "Attention, primitive vessel. This is Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. You have entered space that belongs to us. Prepare to be boarded." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth vessel UES Defender. We come in peace and mean no harm to your empire." Laughter came through the speakers. Cold, mocking laughter that made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. "Earth? We have never heard of this pathetic world. Your ship looks like something built by children playing with scrap metal." Pete Davis came up from the engine room, wiping oil from his hands. "Captain, what's all the noise about?" He looked at the screen and whistled. "Those are some big ships. The Zephyrians think we're primitive," Lisa said. "They want to board us." Admiral Vextar's voice came back stronger. "Your little tin can amuse us, humans. We have conquered 47 star systems. We have destroyed fleets of warships 10 times larger than your toy boat. Surrender now, and we might keep some of you alive for our museums." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We're explorers, not conquerors. We just want to learn about the galaxy." "Learn?" The alien admiral laughed again. "You will learn what it means to face the power of the Zephyrian Empire. Your ship has no real weapons. Your armor looks like it was made from cooking pans. What could primitives like you possibly teach a race that has ruled space for 1,000 years?" Susan Clark looked up from her navigation station. "Captain, they're moving into attack positions. All 12 ships have weapons aimed at us." Jake looked around at his crew. Amy was scared but trying to hide it. Lisa had her hand over her weapon controls. Nathan was reading sensor data with a worried expression. Pete just looked angry at being called primitive. Susan was ready to move the ship if needed. "Admiral Vextar," Jake said into the communicator, "we don't want to fight. There's no reason for violence here." "Violence." The alien's voice was full of contempt. "This will not be violence. This will be an extermination. Your species is clearly too backward to be allowed to contaminate space with your presence. We will destroy your ship and take samples of your technology back to our scientists. They will have a good laugh at how simple your minds are." The Zephyrian ships began to glow brighter. Energy built up in their weapon systems. Each ship could probably destroy the Defender with a single shot, and there were 12 of them. "Look at your pathetic little ship," Admiral Vextar continued. "No heavy armor. No massive guns. No shields that we can detect. You humans must be the most foolish species in the galaxy. To think you could explore space with such garbage. Did you really think you could meet real spacefaring races and survive? Jake walked back to his captain's chair. Admiral, you're making a mistake. The only mistake here was made by whatever fool sent you into space in that ridiculous ship. But do not worry, humans. Your deaths will serve a purpose. When we display the wreckage of your vessel in our conquest museums, other primitive species will see what happens to those who dare to challenge the Zephyrian Empire. The alien ships moved closer. Their weapons were fully charged now, ready to fire. The defender sat in the middle of the circle, looking tiny and helpless compared to the massive warship surrounding it. This is your last chance, Admiral Vextar said. Surrender your ship and submit to the Empire or be destroyed like the insignificant insects you are. Jake looked at each of his crew members one more time. Amy nodded slightly. Lisa put her hand on a different set of controls. Nathan smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. Pete cracked his knuckles. Susan's fingers moved over her navigation panel. Admiral Vexitar, Jake said quietly, I think you're about to learn something new about humans. The alien fleet prepared to fire. Admiral Vextar's voice boomed across the bridge of the Defender. Fire all weapons. Turn that pathetic human ship into space dust. The 12 Zephyrian warships opened fire at the same time. Massive beams of red energy shot toward the Defender from every direction. Each beam was thick as a building, and hot enough to melt through solid rock. The space around the human ship lit up like a deadly fireworks show. Jake Morrison stood calmly in his captain's chair, watching the attack come toward them. His crew held their breath. Amy Patterson gripped her communication station so hard her knuckles turned white. Lisa Carter watched her tactical screens as the energy beams got closer and closer. The attack hit the Defender with enough force to destroy a small moon. The red beam struck the ship's hull and seemed to splash against it like water hitting a rock. Bright flashes filled the space around the ship, but when the light faded, the Defender was still there. Not a single scratch marked its metal surface. Silence filled the communication channels. Admiral Vextar's voice came back, confused and angry. What happened? Report. One of the Zephyrian ship captains answered. Sir, all weapons fired successfully. Direct hits on target. But the human ship shows no damage at all. Impossible. Admiral Vextar shouted. No ship that small could survive our combined firepower. Fire again! Maximum power! The alien fleet charged their weapons for a second attack. This time they put even more energy into their beams. The red light was so bright it hurt to look at directly. The beams struck the Defender again, lasting longer this time. The attack went on for 30 full seconds. When it ended, the human ship was still perfectly fine. Nathan Brooks looked at his science station with amazement. Captain, our hull temperature didn't even go up. It's like their weapons aren't touching us at all. Because they're not, Jake said quietly. Pete Davis laughed from his engineering station. Look at them. They don't know what to make of us now. The Zephyrian ships had stopped firing. Jake could imagine the confusion on their bridges. These aliens had conquered dozens of worlds with their weapons, but now those same weapons couldn't even scratch one small human ship. Admiral Vextar's voice came back, no longer mocking. Now he sounded worried. Human Captain, what kind of shields are you using? Our sensors detect no energy barriers around your vessel. Jake smiled. That's because we're not using shields, Admiral. Then how did you survive our attack? We didn't just survive it, Jake said. Your weapons never reached us. Lisa Carter spoke up from her station. Captain, the Zephyrian fleet is regrouping. They're trying different weapon types now. Jake nodded. Let them try. The alien ships began firing different kinds of weapons. Blue energy beams, plasma missiles, and some kind of spinning metal projectiles all headed toward the Defender. Each attack was powerful enough to crack a planet's surface. Each attack hit the human ship and did absolutely nothing. Admiral Vexitar was getting desperate. This is impossible. Nothing can withstand the combined firepower of the Zephyrian fleet. We have destroyed entire civilizations with these weapons. Amy Patterson turned to Jake. Sir, should I explain it to them? Not yet, Jake said. Let them figure it out. Susan Clark was watching her navigation screens. Captain, 3 more Zephyrian ships just arrived. They're even bigger than the first ones. The new ships were massive. Each one looked like a floating city with thousands of weapons. They moved into position around the Defender and added their firepower to the attack. Now 15 alien warships were shooting at the human vessel with enough energy to destroy a star. Nothing happened. The Defender sat in the middle of the storm of weapons fire, completely unharmed. Its hull gleamed like new metal. Its engines hummed quietly. Even its communication antenna was undamaged. "This is not possible," Admiral Vextar screamed. "What are you?" Jake stood up from his captain's chair. "We're humans, Admiral. And you just made a very big mistake." "What mistake?" "Your ship cannot attack us. We see no weapons on your vessel." Nathan Brooks looked up from his science station. "Captain, all systems are ready." Pete Davis nodded from engineering. "Power levels are perfect, sir." Lisa Carter smiled at her tactical controls. "Weapon systems online and ready to fire." "Weapon systems?" Admiral Vextar laughed, but it sounded forced now. "What weapons?" "We see nothing but a smooth metal hull." Jake walked to the center of the bridge. "Computer, begin activation sequence." A calm female voice filled the bridge. It was Karen White, the ship's artificial intelligence. Dimensional weapons array coming online. Accessing spatial coordinates across 12 dimensions. Target acquisition systems ready. The Zephyrian fleet suddenly stopped firing. Admiral Vextar's voice was quiet now. 12 dimensions? What does that mean? "It means," Jake said, "that you've been fighting the wrong war. Your weapons exist in 3 dimensions. Your ships exist in 3 dimensions. Your entire understanding of reality is limited to 3 dimensions." The space around the Defender began to shimmer and bend. The stars looked different, like they were being viewed through moving water. The Zephyrian ships started to look strange too. Their edges seemed to blur and shift. "The Defender exists in 12 dimensions simultaneously," Jake continued. "Your weapons can only hit us in 3 of them. We can phase our ship through dimensional space faster than your sensors can track." Admiral Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. "That's impossible. No race in the galaxy has mastered dimensional physics. No race except humans," Lisa Carter said as she prepared the targeting systems. The Zephyrian ships tried to move away, but space itself was changing around them. Their engines, designed for 3-dimensional movement, couldn't escape something that existed in 12 dimensions at once. Jake sat back down in his captain's chair. "Admiral Vextar, you wanted to see our weapons. You called us primitive. You mocked our ship and threatened to put us in your museums." "Wait," the alien admiral said. "We can negotiate. The Zephyrian Empire is willing to discuss terms." "Too late for that," Jake said. "You had your chance for peaceful contact. Now you get to learn why humanity survived long enough to reach the stars." The shimmer around the Defender grew brighter. The space around the 15 alien warships began to twist and bend in ways that hurt to look at. "Fire," Jake said quietly. The space around the Zephyrian fleet began to change in ways that defied everything they knew about physics. 3 of the alien warships suddenly looked flat, like someone had pressed them between 2 giant pieces of glass. The ships were still there, but they had no thickness at all. The crews inside were alive but trapped in a 2-dimensional prison. Admiral Vextar watched in horror as his powerful vessels became geometric shapes painted against the darkness of space. "What have you done to my ships?" Jake Morrison's voice was calm and steady. "We compressed them into the 2nd dimension. They still exist, but they can't move or fight in 3-dimensional space anymore." 2 more Zephyrian ships began to twist and turn in impossible ways. They folded in on themselves like origami made of metal and energy. The ships turned inside out, their outer hulls becoming inner corridors and their inner chambers becoming exterior surfaces. The crews were unharmed but completely confused as their ships transformed around them. "This is impossible," Admiral Vextar shouted. "Matter cannot behave this way." Nathan Brooks looked up from his science station with excitement. "Actually, it can. Most species only understand 3 dimensions of space: length, width, and height. But there are at least 11 more dimensions that exist all around us. Humans learned to see and use them." Lisa Carter was working at her tactical controls, selecting targets carefully. 2 ships down, 13 to go. "Captain, should I demonstrate the 4th dimension next?" "Please do," Jake said. 2 of the largest Zephyrian warships suddenly occupied the same space at the same time. They were both solid, both real, but they passed through each other like ghosts. The crews could see each other through their ship walls, but they couldn't touch or interact at all. They existed in parallel spaces that touched but never met. Admiral Vextar's voice was getting higher and more panicked. "How is this possible? Those ships are in the same location, but they're not colliding." Pete Davis grinned from his engineering station. "They're separated by the 4th spatial dimension. Imagine 2 pieces of paper stacked on top of each other. From above, they look like they occupy the same space, but there's actually distance between them in the 3rd dimension. Same idea. just with higher dimensions. Amy Patterson was listening to communications from the Zephyrian ships. "Captain, they're calling for reinforcements. The crews are reporting impossible phenomena. They don't understand what they're seeing." "Let them call," Jake said. "More ships just means more opportunities to demonstrate human technology." Susan Clark was tracking the movements of the alien fleet. "Sir, 3 ships are trying to retreat, but they can't move normally. Space seems to be twisted around them. That's because we've bent the 5th dimension around their location," Jake explained. "They think they're moving forward, but they're actually moving in a loop. They'll keep flying in the same circle until we release them." The remaining Zephyrian ships were firing their weapons desperately, but the energy beams were disappearing into dimensional folds before they could reach the defender. Some shots went into the 6th dimension, others into the 7th. A few lucky hits managed to stay in 3-dimensional space, but the defender simply phased parts of its hull into other dimensions to avoid them. Admiral Vextar was no longer giving orders. His voice was weak and confused. "What are you? How did a species we never heard of master forces that the greatest minds in our empire cannot even understand?" Jake stood up and walked to the center of the bridge. "We're explorers, Admiral. We ask questions about how the universe works, and we don't stop asking until we find answers. While your empire was busy conquering worlds, humanity was busy learning the deepest secrets of reality." Karen White's artificial intelligence voice filled the bridge. "Dimensional weapons array operating at 12% capacity. All target ships are disabled but intact. No casualties reported among alien crews." Nathan Brooks was amazed by his sensor readings. "Captain, we're barely using any power at all. The dimensional manipulations are so efficient that we could keep this up for hours without straining our systems." Lisa Carter selected 2 more targets. "Demonstrating dimensional rotation," she announced. The chosen Zephyrian ships began to spin, but not in any direction that 3-dimensional minds could understand. They were rotating through the 8th and 9th dimensions simultaneously, which made them appear and disappear like blinking lights. "The crews are safe," Nathan reported. "They're just experiencing movement through dimensions they can't perceive. To them, it probably feels like the universe is blinking on and off." Admiral Vextar's flagship was the largest ship in the fleet, bristling with enough weapons to level a planet's surface. But now it was helpless, surrounded by distorted space-time that made normal movement impossible. "Human Captain, please stop this. We surrender." "The Zephyrian Empire surrenders to Earth." "Surrender?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "Admiral, you attacked us without provocation. You called us primitive insects. You threatened to put our remains in your conquest museums. Did you really think there would be no consequences?" 2 more alien ships found themselves stretched across the 10th dimension, becoming incredibly long but incredibly thin. From the side, they looked normal, but from any other angle, they appeared as thin lines drawn across space. Their crews were unharmed but experiencing reality in a completely new way. Pete Davis was monitoring the power systems. "Captain, we're still using minimal energy. These dimensional manipulations are almost effortless once you understand the math." Amy Patterson looked up from her communication station. "Sir, I'm receiving surrender requests from all remaining Zephyrian vessels. They're offering to withdraw from this sector of space." "Not good enough," Jake said. "Susan, show them the 11th dimension." Susan Clark worked at her navigation controls. The last free-moving Zephyrian ship suddenly found themselves moving backward through time by a few seconds. They would fire their weapons, then watch the energy beams disappear back into their gun barrels. They would give orders, then hear their own voices speaking the words in reverse. "They're caught in a temporal loop," Susan explained. "Not real time travel, just movement through the 11th dimension, which intersects with time in our local space. They'll experience the same 30 seconds over and over until we release them." Admiral Vexitar's voice came through the communicator one more time, broken and defeated. "What do you want from us? What are your terms?" "The Zephyrian Empire will give you anything." Jake sat back in his captain's chair and smiled. "Now you want to negotiate." Jake Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the disabled Zephyrian fleet. 15 massive warships hung in space around the Defender, each one trapped in dimensional mathematics they couldn't understand. Some were flattened into 2-dimensional shapes, others rotated through invisible dimensions. A few were caught in temporal loops, repeating the same moments over and over. "Admiral Vextar," Jake said into the communicator, "you wanted to demonstrate the power of your empire. Now let me show you what happens when humanity decides to stop being polite." Lisa Carter smiled at her tactical station. Captain, should I show them what the 12th dimension can do? Not yet, Jake replied. Let's make sure they understand the first 11 dimensions first. The Zephyrian Admiral's voice came through the speakers, no longer proud or mocking. Now he sounded terrified. Human Captain, we acknowledge your superior technology. The Zephyrian Empire requests immediate ceasefire and negotiation. Amy Patterson turned from her communications station. Sir, I'm picking up long-range communications from their fleet. They're calling this an emergency situation requiring immediate backup from their home worlds. Nathan Brooks was studying his science displays with fascination. Captain, the dimensional stresses we're creating are incredibly stable. We could maintain these effects for days without any problems. The math is just beautiful. Pete Davis laughed from his engineering station. Beautiful? Nathan, we just turned a dozen warships into geometric puzzles and you're calling it beautiful? Well, yes, Nathan said seriously. When you understand how it works, it really is elegant. We're not destroying anything, just relocating it through dimensions that most species can't even perceive. Jake walked to the main screen where he could see the trapped alien ships. Admiral Vextar, your empire has conquered 47 star systems. How many species did you destroy because you thought they were primitive? There was a long pause before the Admiral answered. We do not discuss military operations with enemy forces. Enemy forces? Jake's voice got harder. Admiral, if we were your enemies, your fleet would already be destroyed. We're showing you mercy by keeping your crews alive. Susan Clark looked up from her navigation station. Captain, 3 more Zephyrian ships just arrived in the system. They're much larger than the first fleet. The new ships were enormous. Each one was the size of a small moon and covered with thousands of weapon ports. They moved slowly but with obvious power, their hulls glowing with energy shields that could probably deflect asteroid impacts. This is Fleet Admiral Zarketh of the Zephyrian Home Fleet, a new voice announced. Admiral Vextar, report your situation immediately. Admiral Vextar's voice was embarrassed and frightened. Fleet Admiral, we encountered a human vessel. Their technology is beyond our understanding. Recommend immediate withdrawal and full fleet mobilization. Ridiculous, Fleet Admiral Zarketh replied. No single ship could defeat 15 Zephyrian warships. Prepare for combined assault on the human vessel. Jake sighed. Amy, open a channel to the new fleet. Channel open, Captain. Fleet Admiral Zarketh, this is Captain Jake Morrison. Your advance fleet attacked us without provocation. I suggest you reconsider before making the same mistake. The alien Fleet Admiral laughed, the same mocking sound Admiral Vextar had made earlier. Human, you may have surprised Admiral Vexitar with some clever trick, but the home fleet carries weapons that can crack planets in half. Surrender now or face total destruction. Lisa Carter looked at Jake with a questioning expression. Jake nodded. Demonstrating the 12th dimension, Lisa announced. The 3 massive home fleet ships suddenly weren't there anymore. They hadn't exploded or disappeared. They simply existed somewhere else entirely. They were still solid, still functional, but they were located in a dimension that had no intersection with normal space. Where did they go? Admiral Vextar asked in amazement. Nathan Brooks checked his sensors. They're still here, just displaced through the 12th spatial dimension. They exist in a parallel space that touches ours but doesn't overlap. We can bring them back anytime we want. Fleet Admiral Zarketh's voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. What happened? Where are we? Our sensors show empty space in all directions, but we can still hear communications. You're in the 12th dimension, Jake explained. You can hear us because sound waves can cross dimensional boundaries, but you can't see us because light cannot. You're completely isolated from normal space-time. Pete Davis was monitoring the power levels. Captain, even with all these dimensional manipulations running, we're only using 15% of our total capacity. We could handle 10 times as many enemy ships without breaking a sweat. Amy Patterson was listening to communications from both alien fleets. Sir, they're trying to coordinate some kind of response, but half their ships can't move and the other half can't see each other. The new fleet is requesting immediate evacuation. Jake sat back in his captain's chair. Computer, restore normal spacetime around all Zephyrian vessels. Maintain dimensional locks on their weapons systems only. Karen White's artificial intelligence voice responded. Restoring 3-dimensional space. Weapons systems will remain dimensionally locked. Alien vessels will be unable to fire but free to move and communicate. One by one, the Zephyrian ships returned to normal space. The flattened ships regained their proper thickness. The inside-out vessels folded back to their original configuration. The ships caught in temporal loops stopped repeating the same 30 seconds. The 3 home fleet ships reappeared from the 12th dimension, their crews shaken but unharmed. But when the alien ships tried to charge their weapons, nothing happened. Their energy systems were still connected. Their crews could still operate their controls. But the weapons themselves existed in a different dimensional space where they couldn't affect normal matter. Fleet Admiral Zarketh's voice was quiet and respectful now. "Human Captain, we have never encountered technology like this. The Zephyrian Empire requests formal negotiations." "Now you want to talk," Jake said. "After you threatened to crack planets and destroy my ship." Admiral Vextar spoke up. "Captain Morrison, we were wrong to attack you. We thought we were dealing with a primitive species. We did not know that humanity had mastered dimensional physics." Lisa Carter was still monitoring the alien fleet. "Captain, more ships are approaching. Long-range sensors show at least 50 Zephyrian vessels heading this way." Jake smiled. "Let them come. We have 11 more dimensions to show them." Nathan Brooks looked up from his science station. "Actually, Captain, there might be even more dimensions than 12. Our mathematics suggests the possibility of infinite dimensional space." "Infinite dimensions?" Pete Davis whistled. "That means infinite possibilities for creative solutions to hostile aliens." Fleet Admiral Zarketh's voice came over the communicator again. "Human Captain, what do you want from the Zephyrian Empire? What are your terms for peace?" Jake stood up and walked to the center of the bridge. "Now that's a much better question, Fleet Admiral." Jake Morrison stood in the center of the Defender's bridge, looking at the 18 Zephyrian warships floating helplessly around his vessel. The most powerful fleet in their empire couldn't fire a single shot. Their weapons existed in dimensional space where they were useless. The alien crews were learning what it felt like to be completely outmatched. "Fleet Admiral Zarketh," Jake said into the communicator, "here are humanity's terms. The Zephyrian Empire will immediately cease all military expansion. You will withdraw your forces from any system where the local population did not invite you. You will release all species you have conquered and allow them to govern themselves." The alien fleet admiral's voice was carefully controlled. "Captain Morrison, the Zephyrian Empire spans hundreds of worlds. What you ask would mean the end of our civilization as we know it." "No," Jake replied. "It would mean the beginning of your civilization as it should be. Conquest is not civilization, Fleet Admiral. It's just organized violence." Amy Patterson looked up from her communication station. "Captain, I'm receiving transmissions from all over the galaxy. Other species heard about our encounter with the Zephyrians. Everyone wants to know who we are and how we defeated their fleet." Nathan Brooks was analyzing data from his science station. "Sir, long-range sensors show ships from at least 12 different species heading toward our location. Some are coming to investigate, others might be coming to help the Zephyrians. Or," Susan Clark added from her navigation station, "they might be coming to see if the Zephyrian Empire is finally vulnerable." Admiral Vextar's voice came through the speakers. "Human Captain, you do not understand galactic politics. The Zephyrian Empire maintains order in this region of space. Without us, there would be constant warfare between species." Jake laughed. "Admiral, you are the constant warfare. Every species you've conquered was living peacefully until you decided they needed to be part of your empire." Lisa Carter was monitoring the approaching ships. "Captain, the new arrivals include vessels from the Altarian Republic, the Crystal Collective, and the Nomad Fleet. These are all species that were conquered by the Zephyrians in the past 50 years. Pete Davis looked up from his engineering station. "Sounds like the Zephyrians are about to have bigger problems than just us." Fleet Admiral Zarketh tried a different approach. "Captain Morrison, surely we can reach some accommodation. The Zephyrian Empire is willing to offer humanity advanced technology in exchange for your dimensional weapons." "You're missing the point," Jake said. "We don't want your technology, and we're not interested in conquest. We want peace in this region of space so we can explore without being attacked by aggressive empires." The first of the arriving ships came into view, sleek, vessels with flowing lines and hulls that seemed to change color in the starlight. Amy worked at her communication station to establish contact. "This is Captain Veltar of the Altarian Republic," a new voice said. "We heard reports that the Zephyrian fleet has been disabled. Is this accurate?" Jake smiled. "This is Captain Morrison of Earth. The Zephyrian fleet is intact but cannot use their weapons. They're learning about diplomatic negotiations Impossible, Captain Veltar said. No force in the galaxy can defeat Zephyrian warships. Apparently there is, Jake replied. Would you like a demonstration? There was silence for a moment, then Captain Veltar laughed, a musical sound very different from Zephyrian mockery. No demonstration necessary, Captain Morrison. The Altarian Republic offers friendship to Earth and humanity. More ships arrived over the next hour. Each species that had been conquered by the Zephyrians sent representatives. The Crystal Collective came in ships that looked like flying diamonds. The Nomad fleet arrived in vessels that seemed to be made of living metal. Even species that Jake had never heard of showed up to witness the Zephyrian Empire's first defeat. Nathan Brooks was fascinated by the variety of alien technologies. Captain, we're getting sensor readings from dozens of different ship designs. Each species has developed completely different solutions to space travel. And now they're all free to develop those solutions without Zephyrian interference, Jake said. Fleet Admiral Zarketh made one last attempt to negotiate. Human Captain, what if the Zephyrian Empire agrees to stop expanding but keeps the worlds we already control? Surely that would be acceptable. No, Jake said firmly. Every conquered species gets to choose their own future. If they want to remain allied with the Zephyrian Empire, that's their decision. If they want independence, you will give it to them. Amy Patterson was coordinating communications with all the arriving ships. Captain, the liberated species are forming some kind of alliance. They want to make sure the Zephyrians can't rebuild their military and start conquering again. Smart thinking, Lisa Carter said. Once a conquest empire loses its military advantage, its former subjects tend to hold grudges. Pete Davis was watching the power readings from the dimensional weapons. Captain, maintaining the weapons lock on 18 Zephyrian ships is still only using 20% of our capacity. We could disable their entire home fleet if they try anything stupid. Jake nodded. Fleet Admiral Zarketh, you have 48 hours to begin withdrawing from conquered worlds. Any Zephyrian military vessel that approaches a planet without invitation will be dimensionally locked until further notice. And if we refuse? Fleet Admiral Zarketh asked. Jake looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of Zephyrian ships scattered across dozens of star systems. Then you'll discover what happens when humanity stops being patient. We've shown you 12 dimensions of space. There are mathematical theories suggesting the existence of infinite dimensions. Would you like to explore them all? The alien fleet admiral was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was defeated. The Zephyrian Empire agrees to your terms, Captain Morrison. We will begin military withdrawal immediately. Susan Clark looked up from her navigation station. Captain, we're receiving requests from the liberated species. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. They also want to learn about dimensional physics, Nathan Brooks added. Not the weapons applications, but the basic science. They're curious about how reality actually works. Jake sat back in his captain's chair and looked at the main screen. Space around the Defender was filled with ships from dozens of different species. Former enemies working together for the first time in centuries because they were no longer afraid of Zephyrian conquest. Computer, release dimensional locks on Zephyrian weapons. Allow them to depart but maintain long-range monitoring. Karen White's artificial intelligence voice responded. Dimensional locks released. Zephyrian fleet is free to leave. Long-range sensors will track their movement and ensure compliance with withdrawal agreements. The 18 Zephyrian warships began to move away from the Defender. Their weapons were functional again, but nobody tried to fire them. The alien crews had learned that humans were not the primitive species they appeared to be. Amy Patterson opened channels to all the assembled ships. This is the Earth vessel UES Defender. Humanity thanks all species present for their peaceful intentions. We look forward to exploring the galaxy together. Jake stood up and walked to the main screen where he could see the incredible variety of alien vessels surrounding his ship. Amy set course for the Proxima system. Let's continue our original mission. Exploration mission, sir. Exploration and diplomacy, Jake corrected. It looks like humanity has some new friends to meet. The Defender turned toward the next star system, followed by a peaceful fleet of liberated worlds. Behind them, the Zephyrian Empire began the long process of learning to exist without conquest. The galaxy had changed in a single day, and it would never be the same again. In space, Jake Morrison had proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon was not violence, but the patient pursuit of knowledge and the wisdom to use it responsibly.